Hi, this is Tara with Love Prevails, back again for another interview. And thank you again for all of you that are joining me today. And at Love Prevails, we do offer intervention and support services for families and their loved ones who are family and friends that are watching their loved ones suffer with addiction, and for the person that is suffering. And so I brought Whitney back. Whitney was here in December and shared a lot of his story, and wanted to bring him back because he had a lot more to share. And we'll see how he's feeling today and what he wants to share. How's your day going? How did you spend New Year's?
New Year's was very quiet, laid back, restful. I stayed up binge watching Yellowstone.
Oh, I love that little show.
It was like, I looked at my clock and it was 12:06, so I completely missed New Year's.
Oh no.
And normally I'm in bed by 10, so the one night I stayed up, I missed it.
Yeah. I just finished binge watching Gangs of London.
How was that?
Oh my Lord, it was mind blowing. And then I Googled it, and it's based off a true story. So it's just like, it's along the lines of like Narcos, and
I love Narcos.
I did too.
There's another one called Landman that has like Billy Bob Thornton. That's kind of a western.
Okay.
It's supposed to be really good. I just heard about it today, so I'll look it up.
I'll have to watch it. But yeah, it's really good. I definitely recommend it. If you like a lot of violence, and I don't like violence, but
I love violence.
I'm just like,
Violence is my middle name.
once you start watching it, it's just like, what? And I can't quit watching it. But I actually binge watched it twice because the first time around, I missed a lot of stuff, and I was like, man, I need to know what's going on. And so I started it all back over.
What network is that on?
Netflix.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I can look into that.
Yep, it was very good.
Good.
Yep. I'm not your typical girl that likes Hallmark movies and stuff like that. I like action, and I like stuff.
I love all of them.
Yeah.
Like somebody asked me today what movie I could watch every day, and I said The Notebook.
I love The Notebook.
I can literally watch it.
My favorite movie is Last of the Mohicans.
That's a really good movie.
It's my absolute all-time favorite movie.
My absolute favorite all time is Goodfellas.
I love that movie too. Yeah. Say hello to my
Very
little friend.
completely genres. Like
Yep.
my
Oh wait,
favorite movie.
no, that's not
Are you thinking
Goodfellas.
about Scarface?
It's Scarface, yeah.
So favorite movie, Goodfellas. Movie I could watch every day, The Notebook.
All right.
That's weird.
Have you seen The Irishman?
Probably.
The Irishman is really
It
good.
was too long.
Oh no, I watched that like 5 times.
5 times. But that was a Scorsese film, right?
I don't know who made it.
Martin Scorsese. I think he directed it and wrote it.
I don't know who made it.
It was based on a true story as well. I think, was it on Hoffa?
Yeah, well, Jimmy Hoffa was was a part of it, yeah, but it was bigger than that.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah, indicated he got buried in cement.
That's what happens when you want power and somebody else doesn't want you to have the power.
You get buried in cement.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's what
So-
happened, yeah.
The zone I'm in lately is just not a healthy zone.
Why?
Well, a lot of emotions like running rampant. My mom took us out to dinner on Saturday. I knew what day it was. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and it was the 3rd youngest. Nicholas is the anniversary of his death. So it was 12 years. And my mom was off that day. And I mean, I kind of knew why, but I didn't realize how much she's still off from it.
Like when you say off, you mean like emotionally off?
Yeah,
Still dealing with it?
Yeah, I can't. So I've lost a lot of people in my life through my addiction and my recovery and family members getting older. But as an individual, even as a father, if I were to lose my son, yes, I would be sad. Mm-hmm. But I still don't think I could comprehend like what his mother would go through. So, like, don't get me wrong, my father's I'm not without a doubt, a shadow of a doubt, the death affected him greatly. But I truly, wholeheartedly, and honestly believe that nobody can comprehend a mother's loss, just because it's completely different. Like yes, the father seeded the plant, but the mother grew the plant, so it's completely different. If that makes sense. So even though it's been, a long time, it's still, I still see how it affects her, and that's actually the main reason that we're roommates is because when he died in 2014, January 11th, 2014, I was living in sobriety house, and I was ready to move out. I had enough money saved and set up aside to get my own apartment on my own. I had one before with my son's mother when she was pregnant with Quentin, but this was truly going to be the first time, like, it was in my name. I signed the lease. I was going to be responsible for all the bills. And it was like 2 months after Nick had died, and my mom was, I'm not going to lie, I would say she was trying to drink herself to death. Just like I said, I couldn't fathom a mother losing a son. And it was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath townhome, and I called her out of the blue, and I was like, hey, you should move in with me and Quentin, because Quentin's my son. She did, and we've lived together ever since then. We moved from Lakewood to Highlands Ranch, and now we're across from the post office in Highlands Ranch. And some people are like, that's weird, you live with your mom. And it's like, well, actually, she lives with me, and I'm a support system of her. And then you have to look at, like, my addiction. Like, she was the only person besides God that never left me, like, never gave up on me. I remember she lived in Arizona, and she would drive up like once every 6 months, and she knew what corner that I would be begging for change on. Even though I was unrecognizable, like, she knew exactly it was me, and she'd get out of her car and scream my name, and she said, get your ass in the back of my car. And she would take me, to an apartment that she still rented in Aurora and clean me up, shower me, do all my laundry, and in hopes that I would stick around for more than a day, but a couple hours later, I'd get the jitterbugs, and off I'd go back on to my corner spot to beg for change and scrounge up for cocaine and crack cocaine and my bottle.
So you came a long ways from being on the streets, homeless, to owning your own place. Long ways.
Yeah, it's really weird because, like, so when I was homeless, I wouldn't shower for like weeks at a time, and my alcoholism was so bad that I would shit and piss myself. I wouldn't change clothes, and I would sit in that filth. I remember the last time my good friend Charlotte found me, I was at her house. I'd taken a bunch of Seroquel, like 60 or 90 pills, drank a half gallon of vodka, and then she woke me up when I was butt naked in her apartment, and there was a trail of blood from her bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen back to her room. And I don't even remember what the hell happened, but I do remember her and Nick, the one that passed. Nick basically like bear hugged me, threw me in the back of her. It was like a Jimmy or a Blazer. They helped me out with the detox, and so the plan was for her to get me to detox on a 72-hour hold, so then she could figure out a plan to get me in somewhere else. Well, I was what they call like a frequent flyer. So the people on detox knew who I was. They knew my name. They knew my story. So once I blew zeros, they're like, "You're good to go," because they knew what my MO was. Like, they knew, like, all I cared about was getting drunk. If it got too cold, pass out somewhere, paddy wagon. I mean, it was a rotating door. That's what I did over and over. So it was like, I don't know, 3 a.m. I did the same thing, blew zeros. So I said, "You're on your way." And Charlotte came back that morning to make sure I was still there. And they were like, "No, we let him out." And she's like, what do you mean you let him out? Like, the whole point was to hold him here so I could come up with the plan to get him help. Like, he's literally drinking himself to death. And they were like, well, we let him go. And so, poor Charlotte, she scoured the streets.
And Charlotte is your mom?
No, Charlotte was my best friend from
Okay.
like first grade all the way up until our relationship turned south because of me. Because she was always there for me. She would always reach out. She would always check in on me. She was actually the reason why I got set up on Facebook, because I didn't know how to use the internet. I didn't know how to use email. I mean, I didn't know how to do anything. And she set all that up when I started getting sober in 2009. And because my first meeting was my 21st birthday, and I kept doing the runaround. Like I'd get 14 months relapse, 6 months relapse, 18 months relapse, and then the longest I ever got was 18 months and 6 days relapse. And then so come 2009, when I got my rights taken away and the court took, it was called a voluntary commitment, they took control of me as an adult. Like it was, if you think about how crazy that is, like I was 28. So normally, like, so what is it, 25 and under, you're still like basically under your parents' like healthcare plan. I was 28 on my own, and then I got the court papers handed to me in detox. There's 2 folders, and one was like, so folder A was 2 years in a correctional facility where they would force me to get help by their books.
Wow. Or
folder B was 7 months of rehab that they chose, because I was doing the rehab like six times, and it failed to work. So in my alcoholic mind, I was like, I want folder B because I'm going to be drinking in 7 months in 1 day.
Yeah.
Well, little did I know, the rehabs that they picked, one of these stints was actually in Pueblo at the Circle program, which is actually the state ward.
Yeah, I know where that is.
So they stamped me
I used to live next
like
to
mentally incapable of taking care of myself, and because I was hearing voices that I was in harm to others.
Yeah.
So, but there was no bed open, so I had to do the runaround. From Denver Cares, I went to Rapo House for. It's a 28-day program. My insurance ran out at 24 days. And they transferred me to the Right Center. I was there for like, I think 56 days. And there I joined a gym, started going to the gym and getting like into health. And that's where Charlotte hooked me up with like Facebook. And I started reconnecting with all my old high school friends. And like Charlotte was like, all right, if you ever reach 2 years, that's my coin. And so I remember I got a phone call, a bed opened up in Pueblo, the Circle program, and I was like freaking out. I called my dad. He's like, ask them if there's any way, because by law, by the book, the courts are supposed to drive you there. So there's no way of any mix up. My dad was like, see if there's any way that I can pick you up, and I promise that I'll take you there in one piece. So it was a 2-hour drive from Wheat Ridge or Arvada. Whole time we talked, and we stopped at like Kmart was big back then. We stopped at Kmart, got like journals and highlighters and stuff so I could like record my time at the Circle program.
They let you have all that in there?
Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
And so when I get there, first thing I do is a physical, a dental exam. They pulled 7 teeth. Yeah, 7 of my teeth were completely rotted out because one, I was addicted to meth for 7 years, if not more, and I smoked it. And then when I was 9 in modeling school, I learned about bulimia. So I was bulimic from the ages of 9 to like 25. Wow. I actually had 3 girls break up with me in that time frame because my mouth tasted like puke. And they knew like something was up. So yeah, they pulled out 7 teeth, and then they took me into this like little shopping center that looks like a Goodwill. And you got to pick out 7 outfits and a pair of tennis shoes and like 7 pairs of socks. And then they checked you into the actual program, and it was co-ed. One hall was women, one hall was men. And so this facility was created back in the 1800s, when they thought alcoholism meant you were possessed by spirits.
Right.
So electric shock therapy, and then high pressured water. So one of the nurses there.
And they did that to you?
No, they had quit doing that because they found out that shit doesn't work.
Okay, good.
So one of the nurses there, I won't say her name, but she took me and my buddy Vinny, could be a real name or fake name, I don't know, took us into what was called the catacombs. And I shit you not, they were fenced off cages next to each other. And she said that's where they would go with the hoses, and they would hose these people down. With like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the riot, or I mean
I've seen
Martin Luther
documentaries.
King.
Yeah.
Like the hoses,
Yeah.
it's very high pressure. Like it'll tear the skin off you and knock you over.
Yeah.
So they actually thought that was how to get rid of alcoholic spirits, was the high pressure water. That's how crazy doctors are.
That makes. I would think that would make them gyrating around more crazy.
Yeah. So they had a witch doctor on site. She had all these chakras. She had wild, like multicolored hair, these big hoops, and
that's when you were there, not in the 1800s.
this was when I was there upstairs and where everybody lived. And every night before bed, she would grab a big thing of sage, light it, and go to every room and do her yabba baba yabba baba, because the place was haunted. And dead serious. Like, so we all shared a room. I don't remember my roommate was, but there was 2 beds. I was on the far wall, and I remember I was stone cold sober, and I had sleep paralysis. I've never had it, but like you feel like somebody is like laying on you, like full body weight. And I look over in the corner, and there's a black like cloud entity crawling across the ceiling with these red beady eyes. Like, and I've seen him 3 times since leaving there. So I think he's still attached to me.
Ew.
Which I think is why even at, 5,600 days of sobriety, like I still, even though I know, like, for a fact I've been forgiven, I haven't forgiven myself. And you guys online probably think I'm fucking crazy, but
I'm thinking you need to get rid of him.
I think like God has such a wonderful, beautiful adventure for me, and Satan is so pissed off about it that he still has a couple claws left in me. And so my goal over the next 2025, my number one goal was to find that purpose, to start living my purpose. I used to write a lot. I write poetry. I write like just dark things that I've experienced that I think my voice could help others go through. And so this all stems back. Like, a lot of people can remember their first childhood memories like kicking a ball or dad tossing them in the air, like normal stuff. My first thought that I can seriously remember was when I was 4 years old. And it was a small, intimate voice that literally told me, no matter what you do, no matter what accolades you get, no matter how popular you are, no matter how good looking you are, no matter how many sports you play, no matter what, you'll always be worthless. So I've been chasing that voice. I'm going to be 44 in March, for 40 years, doing the rabbit race. And I firmly believe, like, when I found out, so I had my first drink, and it was beer when I was 5. And I did not have the phenomenon of craving. I did not. Mm-hmm. And I could admit that with the core of my soul, like that. Beer did not do it for me. My dad was a Tangerine and tonic guy. My mom was a wine person. Dad loved to watch, he was an insurance agent. He'd come home, put on the news, pour himself a drink, and that was drink was out. He didn't want to miss the news, so he'd call one of us boys to go make him a cocktail. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the those times I decided to try it. Like, that's when that phenomenon, like, it's hard to explain because it's not like God, this is great. It's like it made me feel like I could be at peace.
Yeah.
I could be one with myself, and I didn't have to hide anymore. And it just felt like this powerful substance, like exploded in me, and I could be like the popular kid, and I could talk and not hide my feelings. So from that point on, like I chased that feeling, and you know, my good friend, God, I wish I could name names, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble. All my neighbors lived in. I grew up in Parker and Homestead Hills, and my neighbors, my friends, they lived all around me, and all their parents. The booze for professional parents was big back then. Like they'd have a rough day at work, and what they would do is come home and pour themselves a stiff drink.
Yeah. And
that was how it was. And you know, like, a lot of my friends' parents' liquor cabinets were insane. And one particular friend, his father was a teacher, and he was drinking choice with vodka. I remember more or less me, would steal the vodka and refill it with water. Well, it became to a certain point where there was so much water in it,
eventually
where he came home, and I watched him beat the shit out of his son for something I did. And the son took the beating and didn't tell on me. And then that's when I knew, like, I had power over people. And I ran with that. And, you know, through my addiction, unfortunately, I have walked over people. I have stolen from people and then helped them try to find what I've stolen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've dated women and have stolen from their wallets while they're asleep, have gone out and spent on their debit card or their credit card, bought things and stolen out of their purses and stolen their liquor stashes and never to be seen again. And they're probably scratching their head like, wow, I really got burned. So, but it was really weird because, like, my parents were very involved. So my mom was a night nurse. My dad was a daytime insurance agent. So there was always a parent home. But there was 4 of us boys. The oldest being 8 years my senior. You know, he was the most popular kid in school. We kind of followed his path where, like, there's no book on parenting. So I never would ever blame my parents for my problem. I have an addictive personality, and that's not my parents' fault. But they were the kind of parents that when my oldest brother Steven was in high school, rather than them drink and drive, they would say, let's just have a party here. But I don't think they ever really understood, like, the amount of partying that went down on in that basement.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think I was 8 when I saw my first pair of breasts at one of my brother's parties. And she was probably either a sophomore or junior and asked me, and I was like, absolutely. And I remember hiding out in the window and peeking through the windows and seeing people do lines of cocaine and girls on the pool table, you know, stripping. And
wow. This is what your parents home?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so Steve had a fake ID at like 14. So he was always accessible to booze. That liquor store still exists in Parker. So, yeah. And then, so it was like a weekend thing. And then another friend who lived right behind, back then it was Parker Middle School because we called it PMS. But they changed the name to Parker Vista Middle School because PMS was too racy or whatever. And a certain neighbor that lived behind there, his parents' alcohol center was like something you'd see it was like a bar. So that kid and I, we would make, this was in 7th grade, we would fill our water bottles with vodka and orange juice, and we would be drinking in 7th grade.
Wow.
So it was like just that feeling of like in the beginning, it didn't really like. I didn't start drinking to black out until ninth grade, but like seventh and eighth, I knew I drank too much because I was drinking at school. I was like stopped doing sports, and I was really good. Like my parents had all four boys in sports year round. I excelled in soccer, baseball, football, and tennis. And, so yeah, and then like I got in eighth grade, some other friends who were twins. They were on a drug called Adderall, and I saw how they acted on it, and I was like, "What would happen if I crushed it up and snorted it?" So I tried it, and I felt like literally like I was God.
Wow.
And so that happened for a while, and then I heard about crystal meth. And so in ninth grade, I started experimenting, and the experimentation did not last very long. It turned into a full-blown addiction to where I was buying enough to sell to the town of Parker and support my addiction. And I feel really bad because a lot of people that I grew up with never got past that, and I feel responsible for some of that. You know, the alcoholism and the drug addiction and the deaths. And I know you can lead, like they say, you can lead a horse to drink water, but you can't force him to drink it. And I don't know if I should adapt that same philosophy to addiction. Like you can lead somebody to drugs, but is it your fault they become addicted? I don't know how that works. But I deal with that kind of guilt all the time too. You know, ninth grade. God, I wish I could. Because I know everybody's name, but I can't blast them.
No.
So I was dealing meth through the town of Parker, and this isn't incriminating because I already got busted for all this. Like I went to jail, and everything, all that good stuff, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. But a certain night, which is stupid that I got into a car because the town of Parker back then shut down at 10. I mean, nothing was open past 9 or 10. And we were out at 11 p.m. thinking we were going to go to Kmart and go shopping. And I got in the car and we turn in I don't know if it was Target or Kmart, one of the two. We turn in to try to park. Woo! We get pulled over. And I had a Norelco shaving adopt kit filled to the brim with baggies, razors, crystal meth, smoking devices, marijuana, my marijuana pipe, and I shoved it down in the seat, thinking the cops wouldn't find it. So they empty out the car, and they're searching the car, they don't find anything, and then one of the cops is like, wait, there's one more spot I need to check, and he pulls out my Norelco shaving bag. He's like, unzips it, dumps it out, and goes, so who wants to take responsibility for this? And I wasn't about to say me. There's no way. But I got somebody else told them it was me. They handcuffed me. They took me to Parker Police Station, and I got charged with manufacturing and distribution of a Class 4 felony, which was with crystal methamphetamines. And luckily, I was under 18, so I only had to go to kiddie jail. But my mom wasn't happy about that.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to circle back to you, losing the family members, and you're kind of in a down space because of that. How do you deal with that? How do you deal that you're still mourning? You said you've had a lot of loss in sobriety. I haven't had a lot of loss in sobriety. I've had a lot of tragedy type, but not death, near death. But I have had a lot of loss in my life, and so I'm curious, how do you handle that feeling of just being sad?
So
what do you do? Because you can't drown it anymore.
Well, there's nothing to drown it in, so I drown it internally. So I grew up in a household where you were not allowed to express emotion.
Because you're a man, or because even if you were a girl, it was not allowed?
Let's just say you weren't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
The words were, "Stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about."
Yeah, I've heard that a time
Or,
or two.
"Real men don't cry."
Yeah.
Or, "Quit being a pussy. Pull your bootstraps up." Or, "Reach down your pants. What do you feel?"
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what those are? That means you're a man. And don't get me wrong, my dad, like, today is the kindest, gentlest, generous, warming, loving, giving, kindred, just a encyclopedia of information. But in his 40s, late 30s, early 40s and 40s, he was a fucking asshole. But it's weird because I'm experiencing the same thing. Like, I'm actually having to put myself into anger management because I'm feeling the same, like, animosity within me at the same age that he was. But to go back to how I deal with it, I do, but I don't. I suppress. And then because I suppressed so many emotions as a child, almost most emotions that come out are expressed as anger. So that's why I need anger management. I mean, you're there reminded every time I talk, every time I share, I cry. Because there's just, the tears have been held in for so long that there was a point in my sobriety, and I would point this back to my first sponsor, John Lopez, who I actually contribute to the success of where I'm at today. Like, because of him, I went to a meeting every day for 6 years. Like, AA got stamped in my brain. And he was funny, like, "Whitney, like, dude, let it out. It's okay to cry." And so once I learned, like, I would first cry alone, but I felt like little by little, like the onion was being peeled.
Yeah.
And now I'm to the point where, like, here's an example. So last Tuesday, we did the 2024 year in review at work. And they shot me out for being successful at something that I did. And I was a good teammate. And I was just bawling. And so it was just like little things like that, or like, I heard a song and something in the lyrics just reminds me of something that happened in my past, and I would just shed tears.
Yeah.
I was actually at work today in my work van, getting ready to go into the Overlook, which is our clubhouse, and Brightview, who does our landscaping, pulled up next to me, and I rolled down my window, and he rolled down his, and he looked over, he goes, "Your eyes are pretty bloodshot today. You doing okay?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, I'm not doing good at all." And he's like, "Tell me what's going on." So, it's I think generations are different nowadays than they were back then. Because this guy is older than me, so he probably grew up the same way I did, where wasn't able to express emotions. But I think we're getting to a spot where it's kind of being reversed, and it's actually kind of hip to be an emotional guy. I mean, I still want to be the supporter and the like protector of the house, but I also want to be rest assured that it's totally okay if I have a bad day and I want to cry about it.
I think it's more accepted now. It didn't used to be, because I remember even my dad he was tough as nails, man. And I remember my dad didn't cry, and the very few times that my dad did cry, that was just like, oh my gosh, it just would crush me, because
you never saw him cry.
Yeah, I never saw him cry. And I think I remember like 2 times in my life when he cried. But I think now, I mean, if you're crying for the right reason, it's healing.
And that's my problem.
Yeah.
Is I cry for any reason.
Yeah, it's healing, but I think it's more accepting, that, I mean, personally, I think to show that you are vulnerable and that you're not like this He-Man that could tackle everything. You have weak moments. Personally, I find that to be more respectable than just constantly going through life, you know, thinking you, I mean, we all have weak moments, even whether you're a man or not, it's okay to let that show.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you weak.
And it was real hard because being the youngest of four, my father, like I said, great guy. But a period of time, he was really angry, and he would take his anger out on Steven, who's the oldest, who's 52. And then it would skip Nathan, and then Steven would take it out on Nicholas, the one that passed. And then Nicholas would, like, just let loose on me. And so a lot of that abuse, verbally, physically, not sexually, but verbally and physically, really mixed my conceptualization about myself. Like, for the longest time, like, some of the things he would call me, I believed for the longest time. And when I get into a really bad funk, I can still hear those words. And, you know, over the last couple of years, because I can't express my anger in a normal fashion, I have spewed hateful words, which sucks because I know how damaging hateful words are. Yeah. And it's physical pain, like bruising, broken bones, heal. And you are okay with that. But like the deep wounds that you hear, think, feel, those don't just, like, you can't just go in the shower or go to the doctor and get a brace or go in the shower and wash those away. Like, those are embedded in you.
Those hurt way more.
They carry on for generations.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest part of growing up, though, was when my mother left my father, and you know, it was an abusive relationship, and things had gone south, and she left him and took my brothers, moved in with her. I think at this point Stephen was in the military, and it was just me and my dad. And like, he leaned on me so hard, and I think this is where we lost the connection with father, son, and became friends, which father and son are never supposed to do. You're not, you should, in my opinion, never intertwine the two until you get to a certain age in life. Like, you're a full-blown adult, you can understand, you can conceptualize, you can relate. But I was a 12-year-old boy. He was in his 40s or maybe 50s, and I became his, you know, I remember him crying on my shoulder. I can't live without her. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, and then from that, we would go on bike rides every night. We'd eat out at Taco Bell. I mean, we had these deep conversations. And then he started on antidepressants, started going to therapy. And, no, he was an insurance agent. And he met his current wife, Sue, on an insurance tour down in New Orleans. And they instantly connected. And like, so when that happened, and he started putting all his time towards Sue after that whole year, almost year of us spending every day together, I hated Sue. Yeah. I was only one of 4 boys who did not go to that wedding. Because I felt like she took away the most important and most impactful person in my life. And I felt completely alone. So I remember he'd pack his bag Sunday night and he would be gone until Sunday morning. Yeah. So I had this 3,300 square foot house in Parker. And Parker's, it then was like upper middle class. So it became literally the party house. And, you know, I'm dealing mushrooms out the garage and weed and acid and crystal meth. And like, it was the party place. The cops knew us all by first name, and it was not a good time. And I think I internalized, and I don't blame mom, I don't blame dad, because neither one of them held a gun to my head and said, you know, do these drugs and alcohol. But I'm also not going to sit here and sugarcoat that effect didn't have a profound effect on me. Mm-hmm. So, but the hole I felt was not from them, not their marriage working out. The hole I felt was because I was without God.
Right.
And I chased that feeling. And rehab after rehab after rehab, and after suicide attempt, like, even though there'd been all these signs of divine intervention, like I slit my wrist, like, through the carotids. I mean, not the carotid, the main vein right here, in between your wrist, where you're supposed to go this way, not that way. Mm-hmm. I was in rehab, and I broke open a disposable razor, and I cut myself, and blood was squirting, and I was laughing. The house manager runs in, and he's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" It's like, "I'm leaving the earth, brother." He was like, "You're happy about this?" Like, I hate this fucking place. So I remember he wrapped it real tight with like a pillowcase, checked me in, took me to the ER, had a psych evaluation. I was like, and I'm such a smooth talker. Like, I would tell, like, the strength. Oh, I was just really caught up in my emotions, and it was an act in the moment. I promise I won't do it again. And so after they stitched it up and wrapped it, they let me go. The same damn day, I tried wrapping a freaking sheet around my neck,
oh my God,
around the top bunk, and I jumped off the bunk, but, like, right when I did it, the house manager ran, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Oh my gosh.
Like, I hated my life back then. Like, it was bad. Because I remember, so Quinn's mother and I, we met mutually through family when I came back from California. And I remember I got kicked out of LA by my mom because the security guard found me. Like, they had to resuscitate me in my apartment. They had to resuscitate me, like, near the gate entry. Like, it was just, everything was caving in.
Sounds to me, because I've heard your story, it sounds to me like it was not your time, and you were meant to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody, I checked in today at this morning's meeting. I was like, because my dad and I, we have sickle cell anemia trait, so if you go too high altitude, the red blood cells, they don't form correctly. Mm-hmm. So you can't clot. Mm-hmm. And I remember me and, God, see, it sucks because you guys would know how sharp, like, a divine intervention. My mind is very sharp. Like, I remember, like, details, dates, names, phone numbers, addresses. But because we're on a live feed, I can't throw anybody of us.
No.
But it was me, and I want to say their names so bad. 3 other people. We went to the girl's father's cabin up in the woods. Remember, we stopped and got a bunch of booze on the way. And one of the girls, we had a friend we called the Wicked Witch of the West. Mm-hmm. And back then, you could go to Target, Kmart, Walmart, and buy, like, 9 Sudafeds at a time. Mm. So we would jam-pack a Buick Regal with, like, 6 of us and spend the whole day shopping for Sudafed. And then we would take all those boxes and turn them in to the Wicked Witch of the West. And she would make crystal meth with all that. Mm-hmm. And then give us our share for providing all the material. So we were up in the mountains having a good grand old time, messing up her dad's condo and her cabin. There was a hot tub. I mean, we were having fun, mm-hmm. drinking, drugging. And the next morning, it was time to clean up. And I remember one of my buddies was like, "Hey, can you push the Lazy Boy recliner back to where it needs to go?" And I remember I tried, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't." And he was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "There's something really wrong with me." And so we jumped in his Trans Am and we did like 90, 110 down the pass to this house. Me and my mom lived in the basement of one of her nurse friends. I was a lube technician at Lube Masters. So I took a shower, dressed up in my blues, we're ready to go to work. And I'm sweating profusely. And my mom's been a nurse at this point, probably 30 years. Is that long ago? And she's like, you don't look too well. And I was like, Mom, I feel like absolute shit. And so I unbuttoned my shirt and she put her hands to my stomach and she's like, oh my God, like that is really hot to the touch. Yeah, you're bleeding internally. So I jumped in the car, rushed me to the hospital. And en route, like I bled so much, the blood gushed up against my lungs, collapsed my lungs. I went into like a 38-hour coma. And so what had happened is my spleen ruptured for the second time. Yeah, the first time was in 5th grade. It was a skiing accident. My best friend in the whole world, I can't say his name either. He was a really good skier. Like he and his older brother belonged to Eskimo Club. I think he and his parents would pay like $4.10 a piece for unlimited skiing. So they belonged to this club for like 6 or 7 years. So he was really good. Mm-hmm. And it was like my second or third time skiing. And he's like, you want to just follow me? Oh, of course. Yeah, you know what you're doing. Sure. So he's like, all right, we're going to go out back. And I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what outback meant.
Oh, man.
So we're digging through the powder. He disappears. I'm like, where did he go? And next thing you know, I go off this like 13, 14, 50-foot cliff. I land right on my pole.
Oh, no.
And I hit the pole hard enough, it jarred my spleen and ruptured it. Mm. And I never had him take it out. So what happened is, X amount of years later, it's like when you hit the curb too hard with your tire, mm-hmm. you get a little bubble on the sidewall. Well, eventually that bubble bursts, and your tire explodes. So that's like what happened to my spleen, is that scar was a weakened sidewall. And over the years, that weakened sidewall had filled up, and then we got too high in altitude, and something I did caused it to not just slowly leak, but to blow out.
That's crazy. Well, that's crazy, Whitney. Well, I'll tell you what, it sounds like you've used up your 9 lives, so you better be careful.
Well, that's not, I think I have, like, I shouldn't brag or boast, but I think I'm into, like, my second 9 lives.
Well, listen, we probably should start wrapping this up. We may have to take this out a whole nother month, Whitney.
It would probably be better if I would just start from, like, point A and go to now. Because if you notice, I hop around a lot. Like a squirrel. Oh, look!
So the moral, I'm just going to tell you the moral of this story is that you went from the worst of the worst to being really in a good place in life. Not perfect and not...
Yeah.
But
my body's falling apart. My brain's falling apart. But I smile about it.
Yeah, you've come a long way. You've been sober a long time. You own your own home. You're successful in your job, and you have a relationship with your mom and your kid. And that's number one important.
Yeah, my son's pretty badass. Yeah. If you guys get a chance, check him out. Lil Q, LUH_Q, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud. For a white kid that grew up in Highlands Ranch, he's actually really, really, really good.
All right. Well, I am really glad that you came back.
Yeah, I am too.
I think you're a pretty great person. And I do want to go ahead and we're going to close it with, I want to thank everybody that watched. It looks like we had quite a few people watching today, so I very much appreciate it. Love Whitney and hearing him tell a story. It's pretty incredible story.
I am writing a book.
I want to read. I get a signed copy, okay?
You got it.
All right. So
Even if it's the only one I sell, I'll give it to you for free.
Yeah, that's what I want it for free. All right, well, and I hope all of you come back every Monday at 3:30, and we've got quite a few interviews scheduled through at least through the end of March. At this point, we're going to keep getting more on the books.
How fun!
Again, this is with Love Prevails. I'm Tara with Love Prevails, and if you are somebody you love or struggling with addiction, please reach out to me. I did include my email and the phone number. Would love for you to connect with me. I also included my website. Added quite a bit to the website, so it looks really, really good, and I'm really, really proud of it. So I want to just let you know every Monday, 3:30, if you will like, share, comment, and and help me.
You're always more than welcome to give up my number too. Like my phone is always on me.
Well, mine is a Google number, so I don't have my personal number out there. I don't, but I do have a phone number that will ring to my phone number.
That's fun. Me, I don't care. Call me. Hey, how you doing?
But there's also an email address and my and you can also message me on Messenger. Again, if you are struggling with addiction, your best life is out there waiting for you. Connect with me and we're going to find it together. I hope you all have an incredible week. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thanks, guys.